Hello, my name is Alexis Cifuentes, and my project was on the recent winter storm here in Texas, and the actions that we desperately need to take in order to ensure something this drastic won't happen again. Throughout my video, I explain a bit of background about what exactly happened, as well as show what some Texans had to endure in order to survive. I also discuss what experts in the field say could be prime solutions to follow in order to prevent this from occurring in the future. I hope you enjoy. Texas is known as one of the only states here in America that contributes its own energy grid. This grid is run by the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, otherwise known as ERCOT. Texas has had their own grid since 1970 and have used it as a way to avoid federal interference. Recently, Texas has been regretting this situation after the record-breaking 2021 winter storm, otherwise known as Storm Uri, swept across the state, shut down the grid, and left many of its citizens without power, clean water, food, and heat. This left approximately 4.8 million Texans without power and about 14.9 million, which is also about half of Texas's population, without clean potable water during this single-digit storm. The storm lasted for several days and has since made the residents of Texas skeptical of not only ERCOT and its reliability to run the power grid, but also of green energy, seeing as many people fear its high wattage created the failure. However, most of that fear, people believe, was placed in the public's minds by Governor Greg Abbott and his quickness to blame ERCOT and green energy to the media. Although some people do agree with Governor Greg Abbott's accusations, others are more skeptical and believe Texas could have avoided all of the negative effects that came with the storm if they would have shown better preparedness. This event has left Texans reeling after doing whatever it took to survive.
Viral photos. They just showed just how freezing it is there in Texas inside the homes. We saw the freezing ceiling fans. We saw the water that couldn't come out of the sink. So does this underscore how the area isn't built for those kinds of conditions?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't stress enough how unprecedented this is in its sheer scope across the entire state. I want to show you this picture of a cactus encased in ice out towards the western part of Texas. That's nearly unheard of. And then look at this down in Houston, where it's typically balmy this type of year or close to it. You have a playground looking more like an icicle collection. And then unfortunately, all too many of these photos have been popping up. People forced to literally camp inside their own homes in a desperate effort to stay warm. I've had friends try to do that exact thing, parked right in front of the fireplace, doing whatever they can until that power can come back on.
Yeah, you hear about people burning their own furniture so they can have more firewood. I mean, they're going to desperate measures. All right, Morgan, thank you so much.
And there have been a lot of emergency calls about carbon monoxide poisonings, people going in their garages to warm up any way they can. So the situation is very
So what really happened, and what could have been done in order to prevent it from happening?
On its own, Texas has to make all their own power. They have a variety of sources. When the storm came, it affected everyone. Several coal plants stopped operating as coal piles froze. One of 4 Texan nuclear plants went offline. Some wind turbines stopped working in the freezing cold.
But the biggest failure in terms of its magnitude and its impact was the natural gas system.
Natural gas, which actually contains water vapor, froze in storage wells and pipelines. Every one of these systems failed, in part, and it had nothing to do with the type of energy and everything to do with these companies not being prepared for the cold.
Clearly, you can run an energy system in cold temperatures. There are wind turbines operating in Antarctica and gas plants in Alaska and Alberta. So this is not a technology-specific issue. It was more a failure to anticipate that this is something that could even occur in Texas at this, length and severity, and to prepare for extreme cold temperatures.
But it should have been anticipated because this has happened in Texas before. In 1989, the same kind of Arctic storm caused natural gas plants to have the same problems, resulting in rolling blackouts. And the same thing again in 2011. And both times, federal commissions recommended utilities ensure reliability in extreme weather conditions, and specifically for the state government to create winterization standards for these energy sources. The Texas Utility Commission did make those standards, but also made them voluntary, so most companies didn't winterize. Private companies like these don't have an incentive to spend their money preparing for unpredictable and infrequent events without being required to. But this problem is not limited to Texas.
Now that we understand what really happened, what can we do to prevent something like this from happening again? Well, according to the Houston Advanced Research Center, otherwise known as HARC, many Texas homes are ill-equipped to cope with freezing conditions and commonly have pipes in exterior walls, attics, or other uninsulated areas of their home, which makes them more vulnerable to freezing. They are also not insulated at all, since Texas is known for its hot and dry climate. If we were to insulate homes and piping, however, it could play an essential role in keeping Texans warm during shelter-in-place orders in times of inclement weather, as well as keeping homes cool during hot summer weather, which is very common around these parts. However, that is not the only step Texas desperately needs to take in order to ensure this never happens again. According to HARC, in order to fully be protected from another event like this, weatherizing all of our power grids would be essential. Although according to a survey taken by the University of Houston, out of the 78% of respondents who support this act of weatherization, only 14% are actually willing to help pay for these measures to be taken. This proves to be a problem because in order to weatherize all of this equipment, the cost could range anywhere from $5 to $20 billion. Although this may seem like an insane amount of money, expert Michael Weber, who is a professor of energy resources at the University of Texas at Austin, said, "We are talking about billions to winterize, but it might help us avoid a $100 billion event every once in a while. So by my math, that seems like it pays for itself." This is why I urge all of you concerned Texans to please visit harcresearch.org immediately to donate and make this necessity a reality. Thank you. Ethos aims to persuade through the use of credibility. Although I have no true credibility when it comes to this topic, besides through my research this semester, I decided to use a news clip from USA Today, which is a trusted and credible source, in order to show this event really did happen and to show how bad it really was. I used the primary clips from those who were affected in order to show the severity of their situation and to make the audience feel a need to help. Pathos aims to persuade through the use of emotion and empathy. In order to provoke this emotion from my audience, I decided to use tons of pictures of sad and cold Texans. I also accompanied these photos with a very sad but thought-provoking soundtrack to make the audience feel very empathetic towards them and want to help the cause as well as save these suffering cold Texans. Logos aims to persuade through logic and reasoning. This proved to be the easiest to make use of because I was able to incorporate quotes from experts in the field such as Michael Weber and the Houston Advanced Research Center so that the audience will feel I have more than enough expertise on the situation. I also used a graph provided by the University of Houston so that I can add a sort of shock value which will allow the audience to truly see why their participation is desperately needed. In conclusion, I really hope you enjoyed my advanced visual argument regarding the recent Texas winter storm. I know it may not have had the absolute best editing, but for a non-tech savvy person like me, I think it couldn't have been better, and I look forward to the feedback I will be receiving, especially regarding my rhetorical choices and whether or not they worked. Thank you again.